The Startup Cabin podcast is brought to you by Cedarwood. Cedarwood rents out senior CFOs to the tech industry from 1 to 5 days a week. For more, go to cedarwood.co. Welcome to the Startup Cabin podcast, where we share great stories from European startups. I'm Steve Ferris, and today I and my co-host Shumei Rodin will be joining Johan Attby, the founder of Fishbrain, a niche social network for sport fishing, which happens to be one of the biggest sports in the world. And we get to hear about his journey as a successful startup entrepreneur and why he's such a strong believer in niche social networks. We hope you enjoy it.
So you have been quite a lot in media here in Sweden the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You have a company called Fishbrain. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Fishbrain, which is a social network and a mobile app for the world's absolutely biggest hobby, sport fishing.
Sport fishing. I wouldn't imagine that to be the biggest sport in the world. It sounds really strange to me.
I agree.
How did you figure that out?
Things in life happen by accident. So when I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I ran a company in Silicon Valley for many years, and then it was acquired by a company on the East Coast, right outside Boston. So it sold it to that company. So I moved there with family to the East Coast. I was locked in for a year and a half there.
Ooh.
And so I had all the time in the world actually to think about what to do when I grew up. Besides doing some skiing and having some fun.
Yeah.
But I think I really lack the corporate DNA. I don't have that gene in me because it's all of a sudden when I sold my previous company, I was on the executive team of a medium-sized American company. I was not compatible with that. So I knew I needed to start another company, either start a company from scratch or join another startup, because I love that. I'm an adrenaline junkie, and you get that with the startup. It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, we talked a bit. Fritjof from the Relation Desk, you probably know him, and he talked about that in one of our previous episodes. The ups and downs of being in a startup. That's kind of You either love it or you hate it.
Yeah,
and
I think
if you hate it, you go to
exactly.
corporate.
Yeah, you go to corporate. So I was thinking, I had a lot of thinking, but I'm a huge believer in niche social networks in general. Because today the social platforms that exist today, you have a Path, you have Instagram, of course, you got Facebook. Here you share pictures of, you see a lot of pets, you see a lot of kids, you see a lot of party pictures. Content that is super relevant to share amongst friends. But when you have a hobby, when you have a passion, you want to share that with peers and not necessarily with friends. And that goes with soccer, that goes with bird watching, which is unbelievably big in the States. It's gardening, cooking, you name it. Then you want to share it with friends, because actually it's even worse than that, because if you're into gardening, and you post your 1,000th picture of a rose, your friends that are not into gardening will say, stop doing this. I don't want to see your pictures of flowers. Stop it.
It's kind of like baby pictures on Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this could be an award-winning rose. This could be the best rose ever. I'm not into gardening, but still. So that content can be extremely relevant in a peer group, but not at all relevant in a friends group. So during my time there, I wrote an article that was published in Pando Daily in Silicon Valley, and got a ton of good feedback from VCs and smart people that are way smarter than myself over there. So I thought maybe I could potentially be onto something. Then
that was about the niche social media.
Exactly, yeah. And of course then comes the question, which one should you pick? And then I stumbled upon an article, I believe it was in Forbes, where they listed the world's 10 biggest hobbies. And the absolutely biggest one, according to Forbes, was sport fishing. So it's, wow. First of all, there are 40 million people that fish in the States. This is more than play golf and tennis combined.
That is insane. That is insane. Where is this, people? I don't know anyone who goes fishing.
No, I know where they are. They're in Michigan and Indiana, where I grew up. Everyone is into that. So.
That's true. We have a lot of users in Michigan, in Florida, in Texas, in California. So
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, I can see that now. I've seen too many YouTube clips of shark, people out fishing and finding sharks and seals and everything. So, okay, I can actually see that happening.
So there's 40 million hobbyists out there who are out there fishing. And how many users does Fishbrain have right now?
So we launched about a year ago. So we have a little bit over 500,000 registered users. Most of them are in the States.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how many are in Europe or the rest of the world?
Oh yeah. We track. It's an app, so we track everything. We know into zip codes. We know everything about where users are, how track where they pick up, and things like where the activity and stuff like that. So we know.
So, I heard someone say that Fishbrain was kind of like a mix between social media and live vlogging. Do you agree with that?
I do, definitely. So we are definitely trying to accomplish two things in one app, which is a little bit of a challenge. So first of all, it's a logging device, or it's a logging app. And sport fishermen today, they log their catches. I love, one of the things I love with Fishbrain, we're not changing in behavior. So people do that today. If you go to Facebook, if you go to Instagram, or if you go to YouTube, you will see millions of pictures of guys posing with their catches. I don't know if there is something Stone Age thing, but everyone has to post a picture, and they need to smile in the picture. It's people do that already. But here, of course, we'll want to make it easier to do that using the Fishbrain app. So it's a logging thing. And also, of course, we use the opportunities we have with an app, with a mobile device. So we know the location. We collect 10 or 12 different weather parameters like air temperature, pressure, humidity, moon phase, all that kind of stuff. So that is automatically gathered. So you say, the only thing you do is say, this is a salmon, this is the weight of the fish, this is the lure, the bait I caught the fish on, and how big it was. Those are the things you do in Fishbrain. Then we collect everything else on the back end.
That is so valuable, just to have all that data to help the fishermen to find out what's the best tactic to catch their next catch. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that is really what we strive for. We only been in the market for a little bit over a year. We have the world's biggest database of catches already. We got 200,000 log catches. So we are speaking with the authorities, for example, in the States, we got the NOAA, National Oceanographic blah blah agency. Atmospheric agency, something. So next to the Obama administration, I've been there talking with them, and they spend, on average, a survey from them costs $2 million, and they go out in the field, they do this paper surveys of fishermen, how much fish do you catch, what, when and where, and stuff like that. And here comes Fishbrain, and we have so much more data than they've been able to capture in the entire lifetime of NOAA. So of course they're interested in this, because they want to take this information, and because sport fishing in most countries is regulated. So there are catch limits, how minimum weight, minimum length, how many you can catch, certain periods where you can catch. And over time, of course, we're all for giving this back to the community from a conservation perspective. Because today's sport fishermen, they don't take up the fish, kill it and eat it. Most of them are really into the outdoor thing, the scenery and everything. So they catch the fish, and we see in Fishbrain the majority put them back again, what's called as catch and release. So it's all about the environment. So we're all for giving that data back. But also, of course, we are taking that data now to come up with those recommendations on when, where, and how to fish. So we can help the not so skilled fishermen to catch more fish.
So people will, like, in the middle of eating dinner, there's gonna be a beeping like a text message, and they're like, oh no, we have to catch this fish, so we have to leave now.
Exactly.
I can imagine people doing that. They leave for phone calls, so why wouldn't they go for fishing as well? Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you're involved with Google Glass's Explorer program?
So of course, it's the easier you can make it for users to log catches, the better it is. In some forms of fishing, for example, when you're fly fishing, normally you wade it out in waist deep water. You don't want to drop your iPhone 6 in the water.
No, yeah.
So if you can log this with a wearable, and any form factor. Could be Google Glass, could be Apple Watch, or something like that. So all devices, wearables that can make it easier for users to log their catches. We are really looking into that. So we see an opportunity there for logging. Of course, you will never use the Google Glass or the watch for extensive browsing or look for spots or something like that. That you want to have a bigger screen for that. But it's a super nice fit for the logging part of Fishbrain.
Do they use it in? I know there's kind of those like sport fishing competitions. Do they use the app for that too?
Not yet, but it's definitely on the roadmap. So that's something we're working on.
Okay.
But that will happen.
So you had a company before and you sold that one, and I heard that you actually went with that company to the US to be able to sell it to that market. But before that, like what made you become an entrepreneur?
I think a lot of things in life happen by accident. So first of all, I have a background in mathematics and physics. I love math and physics. That's where I have my background. So I continue with PhD studies in complex dynamical systems. Did that for a few years, spent some time at the Santa Fe Institute in New Mexico. It's such a gorgeous place. I really want to live in Santa Fe.
I can imagine.
But after a couple of years, it was super theoretical. So it's almost very closely drove me insane. I'm not kidding. It's a thing that's very close from being a genius to becoming insane. So I think I made my best decision in life ever, and that was to quit and move back to Sweden and start a software company, knowing nothing about software.
So when was this?
This was 99. So this is really part that was the hype, the first the internet bubble before it burst, not after. So it was really super easy for me to raise the first money for the company, which was in 2000. It was not so easy to raise money when we really needed it in 2002 after the bubble burst, and it was really hard to raise money, but I managed.
Was that the reason you moved to the company to the US, or because of the bubble?
No, it wasn't really. It's we had been going on for a number of years in Sweden. It was a business-to-business solution, so we were selling to large enterprises like Handelsbanken, Scania, Volvo, some of the big companies here in Scandinavia. So it wasn't that we were lacking customers, but most acquisitions today happen with a company you partner with. So the reason I moved over to Silicon Valley was not to find more customers, but actually to find partners and potentially companies that could eventually acquire us. And I had 3 really tough years because we had 2 American competitors. They raised a shitload of money. They IPO'd before the bubble burst. So it has so much cash in the bank. And I think Swedes or Scandinavians, we always underestimate how good Americans are at sales and marketing.
Yes, I agree.
It's more than it's a science. They are actually so good at it. When our son went to school in outside Boston, they taught presentation skills when he was 3 years old. It's unbelievable how good they are at sales and marketing. So I came here a little bit naive, being a Swede, with a rock solid technology. The technology was, I'm not making up, 10 times better than my competitors. But at the end, it's you need, if you cannot have the best sales and marketing, you won't win anyway. So I lost most deals for 3 years to my US competitors. But I believe it was in 2009 or 10, I got a call from Symantec, the software company, antivirus company in Silicon Valley. And they said, we acquired the solution from your competitor 3 years ago. Turns out it's not working that well. Could you reconsider coming in and do benchmark with your solution against the one we have in-house? And ours was so much better. So we got that contract. It was a huge contract. And that was really the turning point for Tiffic, which was the name of the company. So after that, we got Microsoft as a customer in Seattle. And then it was really I had 2 options then. Either I raise a lot of venture capital in Silicon Valley, or I sell the company, because I was still losing most of the deals to my US competitors. But I think I've been with the company for 10 years. Then it's a pretty long time. I was pretty tired. So and then we got an offer, and so we hired a banker, did a quick round, and it was acquired by a company.
So I hear a lot of people in the startup industry saying, you shouldn't build a company with the purpose of selling it. Was that your purpose with that company from the beginning?
Never. I think that's totally flawed. You cannot think like, okay, I will build this company to flip it or to sell it. You cannot think like that. I think that's totally wrong. I think that's crazy. If you build something genuine, if you build something that people love and use, there will always be someone that is interested in your business. It'll be super risky, for example, if I build Fishbrain to get acquired by Facebook. Facebook is super active now and looking into niche social network.
Yeah.
But I can never build a company to sell it to Facebook, because Facebook can change their direction in a year or 2 years from now, or they can become a competitor. That can also happen. So I don't believe at all in building a company to get acquired.
Yeah.
Build a rock solid solution. Build something that you want to build, that users love. That's the way to build a business.
So I think it's very interesting that you actually went out and found a niche, sports fishing, and actually did your research. I meet a lot of startup entrepreneurs that, they just want to build cool stuff because they think that they need it. And I've been talking with my colleagues in my company like several times the last week, just why don't people just look at a market and find something that market need, a niche that you can fill instead of trying to build something and push it on the market. How did you go through the process? Can you just tell our listeners about that?
Yeah, I think I had a pretty rigorous process for doing that. And first of all, I wanted it to be a huge market. That was the number one criteria. Because if you're going after a small market, then you have to... I'm not saying that you cannot make money if you go after a small market, but the thing is you need to execute perfectly. You cannot make any mistakes. That is so hard. I think a lot of people underestimate what it takes to execute. It's easy to come up with the idea, but it's so hard to execute. So therefore, but if you go after a huge market, you can do you can have some hiccups along the way. You can make some mistakes, but you can still get away with, since the market is so big, you can get away with it, which is real hard to get away with if it's a small market. So I wanted it to be huge, big global market. I wanted it to be software again, because this is, even though I'm not a developer, this is where I have my network. And network is so important in this world where things move faster and faster, and if you can get so many shortcuts by knowing the right people at Google, Apple, for us Google, Apple, and Facebook, and the companies alike. So I built this network for the last 12 years or something like that. I would be stupid if I didn't leverage that network. Also among VCs, raising money is part of running a startup. So it's so huge global market. I wanted it to be software.
A network that you knew from the beginning. Yeah.
But also this time I wanted it to be life is too short not having fun. So one third criteria was actually to have something that I was passionate about. I would lie to you if I say that I was passionate about B2B technical support. My previous company was the tech support company. It wasn't the sexiest. That was not the ones that I was truly passionate about. So this time I wanted it to be something that I'm passionate about. And I am passionate about niche social networks. But then I choose sport fishing because I saw the market opportunity was untapped. It was a little bit of, or almost a green field, basically no competition.
So you researched apps, other app companies, the market globally?
Extensively.
How long did it take you to go through that process?
I think it actually took the full year and a half. But of course, I was looking into various other ideas. I wasn't just exploring that. I explored a lot of different other ideas at the same time. So it's, but it took the full year and a half.
What kind of other ideas were you thinking about?
I think I pretty quickly decided on niche social networks. So it's I locked in on that pretty early. But then you really want to go after a niche, of course, that is big and global and things like that. But also where there's a great fit with, because I use the mobile device more than I use my computer today.
Yeah.
So there should be a great fit for a mobile device. So I wanted it where I could heavily leverage the capabilities of a mobile device. And I looked at cycling. I've been competing as a cyclist for 10 years. Unfortunately, that market isn't as big.
Harder to also text and record when you're on the bike.
Yeah, but there was a company out of San Francisco that started called Strava, and they did exactly that. They did a kick-ass app for a cyclist, and they raised, it's an American company, so they raised $25 million. They got 10 million users, and they have extremely high conversion rate they have the freemium model from free to pro. And I got to know one of the two co-founders, so I know Michael Horvath. It's a great guy, and they're doing so well. There are 100 people in the company.
Wow.
So they are doing extremely well in that niche, which is also good for me because that proves that if you do something really good in a niche, you can make a lot of money and you can build a successful company. And you would think that this is because they're in the fitness space. You would think that this is a super crowded space. You got the companies like Runkeeper that's been out there for a while. They got more users, but really struggling with the conversion rate from free to pro. Whereas Strava went small. This is the best app for cycling. Nothing else. Runkeeper, you can do walking, you can do swimming, you can do all sorts of things with.
It's more superficial data. Yeah, I can see that. It's interesting also what you said about Instagram, because my experience from Instagram is actually exactly what you're saying about niches. That I started an Instagram account because a friend of mine has Basta French Bulldog, which is one of the biggest accounts in Europe, which is his French Bulldog, and his French Bulldog is friends with my French Bulldog, and he's like, you have to have an Instagram account for her. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna post some pictures. And I got like a really, really dedicated following of people from the US and Italy, and because they were so into French Bulldogs. And the niche of French Bulldogs, like fans over the world, is a very specific group of people. There's meetups, there's Instagram accounts, there's Facebook groups, there's everything. So I think also that Instagram was supposed to be about friends only from the beginning. And I think that people who have private accounts, they use it that way. But when you have open accounts, you kind of see those tag for likes apps you can use, and you realize that if you really have a niche, you're gonna get that following. So for a long time, my Instagram was not for people I knew. It was mostly for my like American fans who were like, and they're super active. They're like, they loved her, knew everything about her. So yeah, it's just a different kind of engagement when you have this kind of niche. Do you think that is a change in social media that's coming, that we're going from the big networks more towards niches, or will they start doing more niche?
I think there's definitely a trend. If you have a hobby in general, you spend more time and more money on your hobby. That's a trend in society.
Yeah.
I think there is definitely room for both niche networks and networks where you share things with friends. I think they complement each other.
Yeah.
Having this discussion with Facebook, of course, they see the opportunity and they see the threat with the niche social networks, because it's not like users of Fishbrain won't quit using Facebook because they're on Fishbrain. That's not going to happen. But the thing, and with Facebook's business model, it'll take time away from that user, because every person only has 24 hours a day. Unfortunately, I wanted 48. But taking time away from Facebook means, with their business model, displaying ads in the activity feed, that's taking revenue away from Facebook. But of course, Fishbrain is heavily integrated with Facebook, so things you post on Fishbrain, you can share on Facebook. Of course, it's tightly integrated with Facebook. But still, you take time away. We don't take the user away from Facebook, but we take time away from Facebook.
So how is your business model compared to what you said about Facebook? Have you made another choice to make it more sustainable? Thinking about this part?
Definitely, because when you're after a hobby where users spend a lot of time and money, I think the best way to monetize is to have users pay for it. And that Strava, the cycling app, they've really proven that works. So their app costs, the premium version of the app with a little bit extra features, costs $599 per month, which is a very high price point. But if you're a cyclist, you spend roughly $10,000 on a bike and a few bucks on a energy bar and stuff like that. So your reference point is it's super high. So it's when you have a high reference point, you get a very high conversion rate, even if the app is expensive. Same with sport fishing. It's in the States, it's a $45 billion market, which is 3 times the global music industry. So an American,
so insane.
an American spend $1,500 a year on their hobby. So we think we will have a high conversion rate from. We will also do the freemium model, a very high conversion rate from free to pro.
And that's interesting, because that means also that if you want to make a niche kind of network, it's good if it's a kind of hobby where you have a lot of accessories.
Absolutely.
As you know, bikes or maybe even fashion, but those kind of interests that it's a lot about the stuff you use.
Correct.
Or the tools or whatever it is.
I think that's one challenge, for example, with the Runkeeper. 20% of the users use Runkeeper for going out walking, which means your reference point is maybe you buy a new pair of shoes, but that's it. So the reference point is really you're not spending a lot of money for going out walking, which means that they have their conversion rate from free to pro is way worse than Strava.
Can you tell us a little bit about your team and what they're doing?
So it's a super tech. Being Swedish, this is a very tech-driven company. So we have 12 employees in the company. I think 8 of them are developers. So a few guys on Android, few on iOS. Building a social network and the data mining and everything. This is very backend heavy. So most developers are on the backend of things. So that's then we have a guy that runs product. He's a super passionate angler, so he knows everything about sport fishing. So he runs product, makes the decision on what should be in the product and the UI and user experience for it. We have a guy running marketing, growth hacking, because this is all how do you reach this group of fishermen. So it's super important how we market this and be seen in the right settings. And we partner with the biggest sport fishing magazines in the States, Outdoor Life and Field and Stream. So we partner with these companies. We partner with in the UK with Angling Times, which is the absolutely biggest magazine in the UK. So
Isn't it also simpler when you have such a niche market? There's kind of there's a certain amount of media you should be in. It's not everywhere. It's easier to find those kind of specific magazines that you should be in.
Yes and no. Because the difficulty with the media company and the print magazines, the average age of many of those subscribers, readers, for one magazine, I want to tell you which one, is 55 years.
Oh.
So it's not super effective to be seen in print. But then there are other, like Instagram, for example, there are those groups that are fly fishing for a specific species, or those groups. So you need to be extremely more targeted. But of course it's easier going after a group of people where that have one thing in common, which is super strong.
And it's not, you can't confuse it with something else. If you compare with fashion, there's so many different styles and there's so many different attitudes towards clothes, and it's just a big mashup, and it's hard for the companies to reach out because who are they actually talking to? Often they don't really know. Not that specifically, at least.
You've been in this startup sphere for quite a long time. And so we have a lot of listeners who are new in their startup, or they're just planning their first startup. What kind of advice would you have to people who are early on in their journey right now?
A couple of things. First of all, it's in today's environment, which is super competitive. It's getting more and more competitive. It doesn't matter if you're a B2C company or a B2B company. I think you need to. I'm not a huge fan of this. Everyone talks about MVP, minimum viable product. I think it's super important to make something small enough that a small sub-segment of users that you're eventually going after love and not like. Like doesn't do the trick today. You need to do something that a sub-segment of a subset of your potential user love.
That's good.
And we've seen that at Fishbrain, because first initially we were a sport fishing app for, it's such a big market, it's easy to get tempted that do one thing that fits everyone. But then we tighten it both in geography and feature-wise and everything. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a week with all the ratings we had was 5.0. So we maxed out on the rating 1 week. And that makes a huge difference from Apple want to feature you if you do something that is so cool. They want to feature you, Google and stuff like that. They look pretty much at not just at the numbers or the growth and the users, but also how they engage with the product and the rating. So my advice, I see so many startups, they try to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
I think focus. Even though you, as I said before, I'm all for going after a big market. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should go after the entire market initially. I think that's crazy. I think that's wrong. I think you should decide if this is the market, then go for a small sliver of that market initially. Make these users love the product. I mean, love it. They should use it every day. They should be crazy passionate about your product. Only when you achieve that, then you can grow. So I see unfortunately, a lot of companies, they try to be everything for everyone and have something that users like. They like it, but they don't love it, which makes it very hard to scale. So focus. Make this make a bet. Of course, you have to make a bet on something. It's startup. You need to take risk. If you're not taking risk, you're not in a startup. So you need to risk something. So it's I'm all for that.
Yeah, and when you're looking at like a $40 billion niche, I mean, if you get a small little slice of that, I mean, you're still going to do pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that advice. I think that's going to be very helpful for a lot of our listeners. And thank you for joining us, Johan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. This was Johan Attby with Fishbrain. If you want to join the conversation about niche social networks, you can come join us in the comment section at startupcabin.com/fishbrain. And there you can also find notes and transcriptions for this episode. And I know that iTunes does not make it easy enough for us to leave ratings and reviews, but if you could please take a few moments to do that, we would just love you forever, and it would help people find this show a lot easier. And you can also go over to startupcabin.com/blog, find out what we're reading, see some how-tos, see what we're learning, and until next time, rock on.